through all these twists and turns that the music world holds, I booked a gig years ago, about maybe 6 years ago, with this fellow named Brian Crabtree. He had been going to San Diego State, I believe, University, or San Diego University. I'm confused about the details. I should know this stuff by now. But at the time, I saw a really early prototype of this thing. I don't even think he had the name for it. I think we called it the Bitbox back then. And Brian Crabtree was open to having other people kind of mess with it, and he really had this idea of having an open source idea of an object that you could pour any kind of idea into. And the early software was this kind of sample manipulation software where you could have sounds be bussed in and manipulated further, and basically making into a performance tool, you know, kind of a musical instrument that had a limitless piano feel, or an MPC in 16-step mode times 1,000 or whatever. It's like a real open vista kind of idea, and it really attracted me to the point where I begged and pleaded for it, and he very thankfully let me have one. And I guess for whatever reason I was one of the early adopters of it, but it's been this fantastic ride now because it's allowed me to meet and experience a whole different world of programming and music expression that I don't think I would have had the chance to otherwise. I would just be sit back playing bass somewhere on a cruise ship or something otherwise. Which is fun and fantastic, and as a musical instrument it's really open, but it also raises just as much questions as it answers, because it just always begs this question of where are you going to go now, what are you going to do next, what button are you going to press. The one I'm using is like 256 buttons in a square grid. I also have a smaller one with 64 buttons, and they just light up, and you know, there's a lot of functionality, but you can basically make it do anything. So again, this limitless vista, so you have to kind of constantly hone down what you actually want to be doing, which is a wonderful question to ask yourself always. I think it's all a very fertile ground, basically, reclaiming the space. Electronic music doesn't have to be this anonymous techno, minimal glasses, white t-shirt. What are the other cliches? There's so many wonderful cliches. It doesn't have to be that. It can be anything. And just like anybody could be making this kind of music. There's a very powerful thing to that, and getting rid of the anonymity and making it so people have fun. The music doesn't have to be just the music itself. Doesn't have to just be fun and interesting, and it can also be the performance. And there's so many different aspects to be plumbed and mined in that way, that different ideas, both with software and hardware, is the kind of future of all this, you know. And I get the sense too that we're at a stage now where the whole music industry has changed so much, but people aren't listening to music any less. You know, if anything, the music's in more people's hands, the creative tools to make the music, it's in more people's hands. So the beauty of having individual aspects of what people want to hear and do and interact with is becoming more and more possible. I love this thing where you have more and more non-DJs and non-musicians getting DJ software, getting music software, and just doing little tweaks, doing edits to songs they like. You know, like maybe mashup culture is a little bit difficult at times because it can be quite banal. But hey, if somebody wants to make a song more like how they want to hear it, and they have easy tools to do that, or they have little ways of adding something, I mean, that's fantastic. It's already existed for years and years in other music culture. It just happens to be catching up, taking a little bit longer with computer music. You know, before, if somebody had a drum kit at their house and they were listening to their favorite classic heavy rock record, they would just play their silly drums with it, and it would be a great musical experience. Well, there's tons. It's like almost limitless, but I can hone in on a few. Code 9 is someone that I feel like he lives the promise. Like, he has a whole philosophy and a whole sound, and he's been going at it for a while. So I can't just say that he's been since 2000 or whatever, but he delivers. You know, he has this aesthetic and he delivers on it, and it's intelligent and compelling, and so that's amazing. He runs the Hyperdub music label out of London, and it's fantastic. It's cool. A fellow Los Angelino is fellow Flying Lotus. He's a friend, and you know, beyond being a friend, I actually really like his music, and I really respect that he's very personal. It's not just the sound of hip hop or the sound of electronic music or a modern incarnation of somebody or whatever. It's himself, and this is the kind of music he enjoys, and he trips out to it, and it's fantastic. And he's doing his thing on Warp Records, and it's cool. It's great. You know, there's a lot of people who aren't known yet in the greater world. People like No Such Thing and and Sam I Am and Take and Matthew David, and there's a lot of people coming from Los Angeles that are doing really compelling sounds, and I'm in wonder and awe of the fact that the city that I've lived in for such a long time and always been like, where's the music, and we're always just trying to make our little scene and all this kind of stuff, and now it's blossoming into this promise, like this, proliferation of great things, and to be able to tour the world and see these fellow artists like here and there and bump into them at random international airports, it's just fantastic. And this is just focusing on these few electronic artists. There's so much wonderful music happening, and it's happening in such a blur.
It's a good time.
It is a good time.
Yeah.
And people, I think, lose sight of that because somebody isn't making money or something and somebody's complaining and being angry, but it's fantastic.